Hey everyone, good morning. It's Wednesday, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, is it? Anybody have any idea what date?
19th?
Is it the 19th of June?
Yeah.
Where the hell does the time go?
I know.
I'm here this morning with Kimberly Marchuk, and it's interesting. Kimberly came into the store. You came into the store about 3 months ago.
A little bit less, but yeah.
Yeah, and we just went boom right into talking about life and love and consciousness and healing, and in minutes we were like
in deep conversation.
yes,
Yeah.
but connected.
Yes.
I'm like, so actually this isn't an interview, it's just me wanting to spend more time with Kimberly.
That's what this is. Okay. Let's do it.
She's fun.
Yeah.
And she's you mind if I tell them that she's an amazing listener.
Thank you.
And I think that listening is healing.
And it's one of the most spiritual things that you can do. Any version of listening.
Really. So we could just both sit here and listen.
But when we meditate,
Yes.
right, we
Yes.
listen to ourselves, we listen to consciousness.
Yes.
So, and when we listen to others, we're listening to theirs. So I really do believe it's one of the most spiritual things we can do.
Beautiful. I think that when you're listening, when we're listening, whoever we're listening to generally interprets it as caring.
Absolutely.
And I have a saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Nice one.
You like that? There's a couple of those little things that have come out today, but yes.
Yeah.
So, and how do we show that we care? By listening. And so Kimberly cares.
I would say yes.
Yes. And I think it's interesting that because we started a few minutes ago talking about self-caring, self-love, and not the doesn't only include what we do or who we think we are, as a parent or as a our job or in the relationships we're in, but includes the deep self, the connection inside, doesn't it? Self-caring, self-love. So you were talking about maybe doing 100 days of self-love, like with some of your, or maybe we should back up and tell them what you do.
Well, I was just telling him I was very inspired yesterday because I had a client that said maybe I should do like 100 days self-love challenge, and it just took me over as a phenomenal idea. So yeah. So now if you want to back up.
So that's like, that can be such a super gateway into finding that inner peace, finding that, everything's a door to the now. No matter where we are, there's the possibility to be present. And if there's a purpose to, there's this idea of, to your clients, that, okay, we're going to 100 days of really getting to know myself better, or finding out who I am, or so that I can accept myself or love myself.
Yes, being present to your needs is one of the most important things that we can ever do. And so that would quantify the self-love side of things, right? Because if you don't take care of your needs, you become very needy in a world that doesn't take kind to that.
Yeah, she's talking to me. Because, that's what happens to all of us, doesn't it? We get out of whack, and we're like, we can drop into self-pity, which is super needy.
Right.
And it separates us, cuts us off from our family, our friends, and our loved ones, but it also cuts us off from our connection to the inner self, to, I call it the now, but the infinite intelligence, the thing that can't actually be named. We have all these names for it, but it's anything that we use name-wise kind of limits it. But it's this where all the power is. in this moment. So,
and with needs,
yes.
right? I tell everyone that the most important relationship you have is with yourself, and a really healthy relationship is one where you get your needs met. And so that is the most important thing, is to focus on how to get your needs met. And when you do that, then you can be of service. Otherwise, right, we're searching outside of ourselves to get those needs met.
So you're saying, though, that, I mean, somebody else can't actually meet the needs, that we have to first
fulfill our own.
Yes.
To be in other healthy relationships, it starts with us.
That's where the love is.
Absolutely.
And then it radiates out, and people want to hang out with us.
Yeah. Fill your cup up, let it overflow, versus have it be empty and try and latch on to somebody else's little bits that they give.
So, so what you do is help people. So people come to you with a symptom, with an ailment, with a, oh my God, my hair is falling out.
Totally. Yep.
Why?
Yes.
And I'm 75 pounds overweight.
Right.
And so you don't deal with the symptom. You help them figure out what's going on.
What the root is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how did that start? How did you figure out? I mean, something must have happened in your life that began a transformation. And you mentioned earlier that even in your early life, like in the single digits, you know, that something happened. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I think I was about 6 years old. I remember the day clear in my head. So it was a summer day, sunny out. I walked outside. I was on the grass. I was about 6 years old. I looked out, and kids were playing on the street, and I had that presence. You know, that presence where time stands still?
Yes.
Right? And I looked around, and I was like, is this all there is? And at 6 years old, right, I still remember that day, because that's what I believe when I first woke up, when I first had a realization, like, wait, what are we doing here, right? So it was after that I started questioning everything, and I probably drove my parents crazy. And then at about 13, I decided that God had made a mistake and that I wasn't supposed to be here. So, because I wanted to go home, I think I could feel the presence of wanting to go home. And so I went outside, and it was the same kind of idea. It was now in a new house, and I sat cross-legged, and it was like a meditation, but like a complete out-of-body experience. And I went up and met what some people would call the Creator. And it was neat because I had a dog that had died, and I saw him there, and I saw a lady who was friends of the family that had just died from breast cancer. And then there was this energy or this presence. And I said, you made a mistake. You need to take me back. There's one too many souls on this earth.
And I'm
you
it.
need to take me back. Take me back.
Wow.
I really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was upset. Now at this point, I'm 13. I'm a teenager, and I'm trying to figure everything out from this area where no one else is speaking to me, from this level of consciousness that nobody is talking about with me. And so I had to go to the source. And he said, no, I didn't actually make a mistake, and you have important work to do, so head on back down. Oh. So I came back down, and after that is when I put myself into reading about spirituality. So I took it upon myself. So from the 13 years old on, I just was constantly reading self-help books, you know, the Louise Hay's, Hay House type books on spirituality, the science of spirituality, because I have a very logical mind too that likes to understand things. And that's where the evolution began. And it wasn't until I was living in Barbados, which I consider a paradise on earth. And what happened there is I started to gain weight. So I started to gain weight, and I didn't know what to do. So I read this book on the Atkins diet, and this was before anyone really knew about it. And I decided I was going to lose weight that way. So I cut out a whole bunch of stuff, and I really did it the unhealthy way. I had a lot of aspartame in coffees and bacon and eggs for breakfast and those kinds of things. And I lost weight, but I also got severely depressed. And so here I am living in paradise, and I'm laying on the couch not wanting to do anything. And so it was at that point that I decided I couldn't be there anymore, and I needed to seek out and come home and find out what was really going on with me. And so I came back, and from there I went to a doctor. The doctor told me I had an ulcer, and I just walked out of there completely deflated, saying, I guess I'm doing this on my own. I guess I'm figuring this out on my own. And so I started with nutrition, and that's when I went to school to become a nutritionist.
Wow.
And because I realized, I went in my head and I went to the root of it. I'm like, what did I change? Because that's where you have to start. What was a pivotal moment? And really, I completely changed my diet. I radically changed my diet. And so that's what I started with. And it did. It made me feel better. But I also realized that this was my body's way of saying, you don't belong here anymore. You need to come back. You need to live with purpose and not just
hanging out on the beach and
hang out on the beach. Yeah. So I joke with people that I retired before I started my career.
Well, isn't that fun?
Yeah.
You know, because service, we were talking a few minutes ago about the 4 things that I think that bring us into the moment. And service, of course, is key. Mm-hmm. You know, how are we enriching others' lives?
Right.
So if that was missing, yes, you would be out of sorts. Mm-hmm. And that's a minimal way to say it, but you were out of sorts.
Yeah.
And
I remember just feeling that longing, feeling that lack.
So you're filling yourself up with food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And drugs, sex, and rock and roll, I hope. I mean, if you're going to go down that road, you got to go all the way down.
Right. But I also realize when you're in a place like that and you're just hanging out, you really end up getting bored.
Yeah.
Right? Like there really is that boredom piece that comes in, and I can't stand being bored. So, and at that point, I always knew I loved the healing arts, but I wasn't, but I wasn't utilizing that time effectively. If I look back now, where I could have been doing so much reading, meditating, studying, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's also why it catapulted me back here, to put me in the frame of mind, like, let's get to work.
Get to work.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you studied nutrition, and so when did you open like a private practice?
Right. So once I graduated from being a nutritionist, I started working at World Health Club, and then I met a personal trainer there that worked with a biofeedback machine, and we put together a program there called Body by Design, Not by Default. And we said, well, let's see what each other does. And he showed me his biofeedback device, and I had actually been quite aware of him, because when I went to school, this is how I got led into it, is when I went to school, there was a gal that sat beside me that said I wouldn't be alive, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for biofeedback. And I said, no, well, what's biofeedback? And so I went to all of the meetings that she went to in order to see what they were all about. And I found it incredible, because I used to always think, does everyone else feel like me? Like, I used to have really low energy, low mood. I grew up very standard American diet, so I'd have, a brownie and hot chocolate for breakfast and think that was going to fuel my body properly and my brain properly, right? And so I never felt really healthy. And so it wasn't until all of a sudden I realized that there's this device out there that can tell you what your body needs.
Yes.
And what's going on and what stresses it out, and what, say, your cell vitality is, which typically dictates how good you feel in your body.
So
those kinds of things.
Shouldn't there be one of these in every doctor's office?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's way more common in Europe. A lot of
Is it?
Practitioners out there don't believe you have a practice unless you have one of these that you work with.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. So then.
So then that led me into biofeedback, because I was going to see him for sessions, and then one day he's like, you're going to buy one of these, right? And I went, I do now, because it really resonated, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I started looking into it, and that was now 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yep.
So you were obviously a baby then.
Let's call it that, yes.
So
I was in my 20s, yes.
Yeah, well, good for you.
Yeah, and I hit the ground running because I was so passionate about it. And what I did that once I was up and running and I had my training for it, I was full-time, and I've been full-time ever since. So
nice.
Yeah.
You've been sharing with me that you don't advertise, and you know, I'm grateful that you even came to do this. You know, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Because you know, you're not promoting yourself. People just come to you. But I mean, there could be a way that you could share this with more people. And you know, maybe even have a little clinic. I don't know. Have you ever thought of that? Having a little clinic that has more multifunctional, you know.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing, is I've worked out of my home for probably about 10 years now. Before that, I was in clinics, and that was just something that I was sharing, was that that the only thing I miss, like I love working out of my home, and I think my clients love it too, because it's very nurturing space, very safe space. But also a clinic is something, like if it's the right energy, and with other practitioners, you feel like you're part of that tribe again. You feel like you're more connected to the community and those kinds of things. So there's value to that as well.
Yes.
So there's potential.
So no, we didn't talk about that before. It just came. And I didn't realize that you've been talking to James about it either. So that's awesome. That's two things. We now know your middle name.
Yes.
And we're going to somehow be together in a clinic. Well, I don't know if that's the truth or not, but
we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. So you're doing you're teaching as well. You were telling me that you're going to go to Budapest. And what's that about?
So I'm doing some international speaking. It will be in Budapest in September, and then in Las Vegas in October. And it's a whole bunch of practitioners that do similar things to me. Everyone's got a biofeedback. They have a whole bunch of different backgrounds as well. And so they come together to learn from each other. And so I'll be one of the speakers this time.
Nice. That's so cool.
Yeah, my talk is called Healing at the Speed of Light. And so it's, you know, we work with a machine that really does help balance and heal at that level. But at the same time, you know, my focus in teaching is that unless we connect with the inner healer and we understand the significance in why we're in that situation, then, and we friend it, right? That's what I always say, is we can never treat it like an enemy. I don't believe in fixing, right? Because fixing leads to suppression, which leads to more suffering. And I don't want you to suffer more than you have to, right? And so truly it's about, I tell people it's about observing, valuing, and then it has permission to leave.
Nice.
Right? So you observe the symptom or the situation, you value it because it came into your life as a teacher, so you understand why it's there for you. And from that position, it no longer needs to be of service to you. So the hair grows back, or the weight loss happens, or you know, the heart heals, and we move on from there, right?
Nice.
And move on to the next one.
Awareness, acceptance, change.
Respect, honor, and I believe that healing is dignity. So it's when dignity has been stripped from us in one form or another, and it's us bringing that back. So that's why fixing doesn't necessarily resolve why, you know, the dignity was stripped. So we have to provide that back to ourselves. And so it's truly about connecting to the inner healer.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, but when people come to you and it becomes obvious that they need, you know, some blood work, and they need, you know, do you send them places to get more stuff? Do you consult and send people to other practitioners?
Sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes. It depends. Depends what's going on with them.
Like the gym.
Like the gym. That can be a practitioner in itself,
yes,
eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna go to the gym.
Yeah.
You know?
But I definitely make a lot of different suggestions, and then from there, sometimes they can work with a few other practitioners that help fill gaps and those kinds of things. But I'm basically looking at focusing on what's going on for that individual and helping them understand it, because from that place, that can be healing in itself too. Right?
Yeah.
And then empowering them to make those changes of self-love, right? Fulfill their body's needs and have that foundation in place again.
Do you always recommend meditation?
Yes, in fact, I often do meditations, healing meditations, while they come to see me.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so we go in and we start asking the body what's going on and connecting on that level of consciousness. And I think that's incredible, and that's one of the best ways for someone to heal, is recognizing that they're the ones that came up with the answers, that the body is the one that actually had the space, the time, and the presence to share its needs.
So I'll bet there's some catharsis that happens in your office. People, you know, when the awareness comes up, and it even comes out of them, so it's not you telling them. They're like,
yes.
oh my God. And then tears and release. And
absolutely.
Lots of Kleenex gets used.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah.
Feel.
Yeah, but I just help guide, help facilitate
Yes.
them on their healing journey. So, you know, we joke or we say, oh yeah, I'm going to see a healer, but really I'm just helping them develop their inner healer.
Be the healer.
And them, for themselves to be their healer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you use the word understand a couple of times. So let's say there is a, you know, an obvious symptom, and the root of the situation, you know, I mean, can go. I mean, there's so many possibilities often, you know, I like in the work that I do to be, you know, solution based, and sometimes, you know, people, a lot of the work that I do is in recovery from, you know, drugs and alcohol and all forms of addiction, and life is an addiction, you know, and so they're like, well, how did this happen? How did I, you know, get here? And the psychology of it, but it doesn't seem to matter, you know, because that's not where the healing happens. The healing happens with their connection with you know, the spiritual connection, with their awakening to their purpose, which is to serve others, to you know, to carry a message of love, and in their lives, and if they awaken to that purpose, the symptoms disappear, and they may never know that it was because their mother put them on the toilet backwards. Right. When they were 6, you know, or you know, whatever, because it can be such a that whole area of, you know, how did this start, or, you know, or how did I create this? It's kind of a dark hole, isn't it? You know, and so it's not do you feel it's always necessary for them to understand where it came from?
I think the understanding can happen naturally. I find that where we get imbalanced or unfocused is when we need the how, when the ego takes over to try and correct what happened. And so I do think there's a level of satisfying the ego, because the ego is there to protect us, right? It's a really important piece of us that we oftentimes, when we get into the spiritual world, want to shame it, right? Want to get rid of it. But it's part of our human existence. It's part of our consciousness as well. But its level is on safety, and so the focus then too is to make it feel safe. And so I believe that if there is some level of understanding that they need in order to feel safe, then I do feel like there is some purpose in that.
Okay, good. I mean, when I teach meditation on Monday nights, I didn't mean to teach meditation on Monday nights, but it just
happened.
It's been happening. Yeah, it just happened. And so I talk about the mind and really the ego, and I say, look, guys, it's an amazing tool. It's here to serve us. It's kept us safe. As a matter of fact, it's scurrying around all the time looking for potential problems.
Right.
and identifying and judging and assessing meaning on everything and millions of things. So it's, wow, it is a super tool. It you know, I mean, there aren't any better. Even artificial intelligence, I don't think will get, you know, I mean, it can only be what we program it.
Right.
And we've been programmed. And the ego has been programmed, and so I recognize that although it's an amazing tool, I can't always trust it. You know, because my ego likes to, well, has a judgment on me. You know, and often that I'm not somehow not good enough, or that I'm not, you know, and so you know, and so I talk to it. Say, it's okay. We're going to be okay here. We're just going to meditate. You know, and you know, and it'll kind of relax. You know,
Right.
so yes, I totally agree that we can't demonize it and say, oh, bad ego.
Yeah.
You know, it served us so well.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And it's this job.
And I think the biggest mistake that people get into, because they'll come and say, well, I have anxiety and I don't know what to do with this anxiety, and so you know, and it's solely, you know, in the ego, right? Is their belief. But honestly, you know, when we give the ego the job of the future, we're not doing it any service, right? So the ego remembers our past. That's what's it's incredible at doing, right? Hey, when you walked across the street last time, you didn't look both ways and you almost got run over, right? So next time,
good tool.
Next time you go to the street, it's going to remind you of that situation, right? But when we're looking to the future, that's when we have to connect into our consciousness. That's when we have to connect into our intuition, into our heart, because we do in fact know the future if we connect into that level of presence and that level of consciousness. But oftentimes, too, people don't want to because their ego is too attached to something else, and then they don't listen to their intuition, and then they get in trouble as well.
Not me.
None of us have done that.
Damn. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and
You
so
know?
then we don't like our ego, but honestly, that's where we just have to make it our best friend. And if it's our
Yes.
best friend, it's going to remind us of things in the past, but then we can also find ways of healing those past situations. So it frees us of fear.
Yeah.
And then our ego is more able to relax
Yeah.
and enjoy the experience
But
too.
without the consciousness piece,
Yeah.
we're always going to be stuck in the getting the same results because ego is always looking for danger.
Yeah, and we're overstimulated, right? Yeah. So constantly on our phones, constantly hearing the beeps, constantly checking, so on and so on. Good timing. But that overstimulates our nervous system, and then next thing you know, our ego is trying to keep up with everything that's going on, all the stimulation, and that's what throws us into an anxious state as well, because it just can't take everything in, right? And then we're not listening because we're too stimulated as well, so we don't have the presence to understand what is truly good for us or not.
Wow. You've got it.
Thanks. But I'll say I've never got it, because then I'll stop learning. So
yeah, but you know, in the moment, I think that the place you're coming from has the highest possibility of evolving.
Because you love everything, right? So you love the ego,
yes.
you love the body, you know, you love the spirit, and you find your way of loving it.
You love everything.
Well, I work on it.
Yeah.
I still have my judgments and my conditioning, right?
Yeah. So we do.
Yeah.
We're both working on loving each moment, loving my life, and loving folks around us. You know, and being compassionate, and you know, recognizing that the great thing about knowing what you're just talking about. The separation between ego and consciousness, that we can live from this moment, from the present. And actually, when I read Eckhart Tolle, I mean, he actually makes it seem so easy. You know, just be here now. You know, and there's a multitude of practices to get into the moment. We talked about, you know, prayer and meditation and gratitude. I love gratitude. You know. Gratitude's like, often I practice gratitude even when I'm not grateful. do you know what I mean? I'll just say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, and just and
say it until you feel it.
Yes, just drop into it, and I can do it till I get tears, and you know, and then I'm super present. You know, and so it's a great little hack to get into the moment.
That's a key thing, though, too, is if people aren't feeling grateful and then you're being told you need to be grateful, getting there can be tricky, right? Because if we say we're grateful but we don't feel it, that's just a lie, and that doesn't actually do us any service.
Yeah.
And so the cool part, though, is that's where the ego comes in. That's where we can use memories of what we truly are grateful for. Go into those memories. It doesn't need to be grateful for a really crappy day that you just had, but go into memories of one of your favorite days or your favorite people. Put them beside you. So that's how we get to use the ego as a version of our creator.
So the
to
proper
help us
use of the
shift.
will.
Yes.
Yes.
Shift the experience into the vibration that we're wanting to resonate more with.
Yes. Yeah. So, years ago, when I got in recovery when I was in my 20s, and my brother Bob used to make me write gratitude lists.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very grateful. And I hadn't connected a lot of the dots that seem to be connected now.
Yeah.
But I would make them. I would sit down and write, I'm grateful for Canada. I'm grateful for,
You were trying. Yeah.
Make all these lists, write down, and do it on a regular basis. And I didn't, I think in the moment, realize how powerful it was, because I was so stuck really in what wasn't happening in my mind, what I thought I was missing.
The taker.
Yes. Yeah. So and sometimes, for me, this this transformation seems to have taken a long time. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but then I'm whatever. I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah. But the layers and the depth that you get in all of that is the beauty in the time and how much time and all the experiences that came with it, right?
Yes. Yeah, all valuable, all amazingly needed to be able to carry a message today. There's, it's been beautiful. And I think that with, sometimes with great learning comes, great responsibility, and of course great learning often comes out of great pain, and we got to hurt, and you make it sound like it was not a painful thing to discover that you maybe somebody made a mistake and put you on this planet by mistake.
Right.
But it was probably quite painful, or the whole awakening wasn't. Oh, I think it's a beautiful day. I think I'll transform today. So, and I think it's important that people know that sometimes that the pain is part of the journey. It doesn't have to necessarily be. We always say it doesn't have to be, but it seems that.
But it kind of does, and it's very Buddhist. But it's like, but we're here to suffer, so that we can learn from that suffering, right? Because that's kind of how. That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that we signed up for.
Fuck. I'm reading online every day from Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, which has totally changed in the last 20 years. That book, Something Happened, it's not the same book I read 20 years ago. Same title. I'm just kidding. It just
but
it
reads differently for you now.
Yeah, way. And he has a chapter, quite a long chapter, on enlightened relationships. And he basically says that if we're expecting anything, then we're not there as we're there as the taker. We're there, trying to get there's no possibility of we're there in a relationship that way, of it actually being a loving relationship. It in the beginning, because of the chemicals and the excitement and the what is it that it releases? Endorphins and dopamine,
oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, all those
all the fun stuff. Yeah,
all the fun stuff. and we tend to go towards drugs and alcohol for.
Yes,
right?
But he said that much better to have 3 failed relationships in a year. Failed being the option, because there's really no failing.
Right.
But he says that better to go in and have 3 failed relationships and reap the benefits from all of that than to have stayed home waiting for the right one. And which I thought was good advice. Relationships are a great place to grow.
Absolutely.
And he said that in his book. He said, if you use that context that I'm here, I'm with somebody, and we're in relationship to support each other in our transformation, our transmutation, our growth, then that context is huge. You know, then we're not there, you know, to comfort.
Right.
You know, although there can be comfort. You know, but he worked really well on that. You know, because it's a challenging area, isn't it? One of them.
Well, and we've been conditioned to be the taker, and so I'm just going to explain to the audience what that is then. So the taker is the person that says, this is what I want out of life. And the giver is the one that says, this is what I would like to create with my life. So there's a very big difference between the two. And we are conditioned through marketing and so on to believe that we need more, that we need things outside of ourselves in order to be happy. So we look for that perfect person, we look for that perfect shirt, we look for that perfect car, so on and so on, right? And we find ourselves ending up always needing more. And so that's the taker. That's the one that says there's never enough, and the one that feels entitled because they're feeling that lack, yet they're working so hard towards it, where it's just misguided energy.
I call it the God hole.
Oh.
They're trying to fill the God hole. The thing that only can be filled with consciousness. It can only be filled with the spiritual awakening. And so we're out trying to stuff stuff into the, because we're in pain.
Yeah. So imagine though, if every day you're in partnership with somebody and you wake up in the morning and you say in your mind, how can I be of service to that person today? What can I create within this relationship today? Rather than saying, well, I sure hope I get that hug from them, or they better make sure that they text me today, or, right, that's the taker
Can't
mentality,
believe he
right?
left, he didn't say goodbye.
Yes, and then we go into that spin, right, versus what can I give to this relationship today? And so you always need to start with self, otherwise you're coming from that place of lack, and it's very hard then not to give without attachment, because oftentimes people are like, well, I give so much, right? But that's coming from a place of attachment then, which actually puts you back into the taker role, right? Well, I'll do this so that I get this, versus actually just being of service. And that's why it's so critical to meet your own needs and to be there for yourself in that loving space.
So like meditation in the morning.
So that the world reflects that back to you, right? So that your partner, you see and perceive them in that space as well. So, because the world works in mirrors, right? So if you're not loving yourself, you're going to get other people that will treat you the same way. If you're in that space where you're truly holding value for who you are and what you're up to, and you know with your intention that you're giving and being of service, right? Then guess what you get in return? You get the appreciation, you get the gratitude, and if you get something else, you're not going to be very perceptive of it, or you're not going to take it in because it's not part of your consciousness.
Can't see it.
Yeah, you can't see it. So if they have judgments, it's not your business, right? It's theirs, and it's something for them to work through, and you become the healer for them on that journey, right? So.
Or from the other perspective, sometimes people can't receive the love because they're not feeling it, you know, so they can't see that.
Exactly.
You know, they could be in a hospital surrounded by loving staff and not see any of it.
Right.
Be full of complaint.
Yes.
And we could talk about complaint.
Do you really want to?
Well, it's what's interesting, just a second on complaint, is that if we catch ourselves, because it's one of those little things, you know, it's like another little trick of awakening, you know, if I catch myself in complaint, you know, damn, this guy parked in the parking lot the wrong way, what was he thinking, you know, I have to drive around. This happened this morning.
That happened to me too. I had to park way down the street.
Yeah, we were all.
We all went through. That's funny. Yeah.
Did you? Well, I didn't entirely. I blew the horn.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Because he was parked right in the middle of, you know, I was totally entitled. It's my fucking parking lot. I did.
Oh, the taker appeared.
I did. Yeah,
Yep.
it did. Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah.
You know, and so if we see it, then we know where we're at. You know, if I see it, if I see complaints, you know, and I dropped out of it pretty quickly. It was
Right.
like, but I was there, you know, in just an hour or two ago in that, you know,
But that brings up a really good point too, because if you love that part of you that had to go there, that part of you won't necessarily need to go there again.
yeah, well,
right?
I think I just did. I got emotion. I felt
nice.
about it.
A
You know,
release.
it's like, yeah.
And so that's what a lot of people get misguided around when they get into the whole spiritual realm. They think that they need to be perfect, and they go into a perfectionistic standpoint of I can't get angry anymore, you know, I can't have these human emotions. But it's actually just about your journey and you loving that emotion that showed up for you and holding space for it so that it doesn't get suppressed and stored and turn into some type of physical ailment that we have to go through
Yeah.
to really learn about it.
Yeah, there's a piece, you know, because what you just said is you know the root of physical ailments.
Absolutely.
You know, and when we're not, and not that we're not going to have anger, they're not going to have all these emotions, but how we love them is how they settle in, you know, and how they
how they release.
Or how they release, yeah.
And transform.
And if we come against them, we hold them in place and keep them.
That's the suppression.
Yes, yeah. And Hawkins talks about suppression, repression, and expression. You know, and I think that for say with anger, I can't be running around expressing it. You know, although I can. I had Earl and I worked together and he's been a great teacher. James has been a great teacher, and you know, and hopefully we have for each other. I mean, because we got really close,
Right.
and so stuff. He wasn't behaving all the time,
Right. Right.
and stuff exploded, and so that's you know, yeah, God, the universe sends us opportunities to
learn
and grow and express and release and surrender and yeah, so and I'm grateful for all of that.
And not taking it personally if somebody goes through it, and if you do, then that's triggering a part within you that you need to work with.
Yeah. So it's kind of always about being present and being conscious and watching what's happening and having the language to discuss, to see what's happening. You know, a lot of us don't have feeling language. You know, how do you feel? Mad. You know, but I mean, a lot of men. I do a lot of men's work, and it's hard for them to see what's happening, to talk about how they're feeling, and that's, I think, just that's kind of the beginning of the work in a bit, you know, to discover our feelings, and we don't teach it in school, we don't, you know, it doesn't get taught anywhere, but I think that's changing.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I think
just like bringing meditation into classrooms.
Yes.
Right? That's the start.
Let's do it on my stools. Yeah.
They're great stools.
Aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Aren't they? So I think, can I just mention them for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that it's as much about the significance of having a space to meditate, you know, giving it value, as it is about actually the practical of having the stool to sit on. It's like I value meditation in my life, and so I have a designated space to do this. And for a lot of people, meditation. I mean, for some people, it's a very high value, and for some people, it's like, okay, I got to do it because the doctor says I'm going to kill myself with stress. You know, my heart rate. You know, so it's like a necessary thing, and so it isn't a high value. It's but however they get there, and so I've changed my thought about these. I mean, it's expanded more into this idea that it does actually just place a value You know, if we have a space. And I tell people also that they're not meditation stools, they're transportation vehicles. Skyrocket them into the fifth dimension of existence.
You just sprinkled some magic over them.
Yes,
hey?
they are, yes, yeah. And I also tell people that they're pre-programmed.
Nice. I love it.
Yes, to call you in the morning. And come meditate.
That's awesome. Is there an app for that?
Yes, because it knows your middle name.
Right, right. But I love that there would too. Very grounding, right? So as much as you head out there, you still get to
recycle Teak. Pretty cool, eh? Recycle Teak. But you know what? I have this vision that as we go forward, that that millions of people on our planet, if not billions, are meditating.
Yeah.
And it becomes a collectively a high value, and they need a space. And I see them actually being made eventually out of hemp.
Okay.
Which is sustainable, which is an amazing product. Can be local. It's but right now the recycled teak, and I don't know how. Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
I have no idea of the how we're going to get to the next step. I just know that it's happening, and I see us bringing another 5,000 or 10,000 of these in. We just did 500, and it was kind of proof of concept. People love them.
Yep.
They're comfy, and actually, I do have questions for them. I should have got you.
I'm okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah. So.
But I love your concept, right? So David had shared with me that his concept is that just as we have created offices in our homes now, it's actually really important to create a sacred space that is for meditation. And so I feel like it's just showing the evolution of us, and our species and what's happening and how we're getting so out of balance so that we can get in balance. And so we designed a workspace at home because our values have been held there previously, that work comes before anything else. But our consciousness is shifting now into understanding that if we don't put ourselves, our consciousness, our presence, our self-love first, then none of that is ever going to matter. So that's why it'd be that important to put something like that in a home.
Every home. See, and at work.
Yes. Yes. Meditation rooms at work.
Yes.
Less road rage on the way home. That's the first thing I think of.
Yeah.
More productivity. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what a real way to connect.
Yeah.
And I see not just the meditation space, but also practitioners coming in to help people get there. Because a lot of times people are, our whole society is like, how to, oh gosh, I don't know how to do this. So I do this whole Monday night meditation, I call them Meditation Mondays, has evolved, and I see that happening all over the world too, so that we can teach people the how-to, which really is teaching the unlearning the how-to. I think that there's teaching them just to sit, and to acknowledge the ego and love it. It's
that's the biggest part from the teaching perspective, right? Because people say meditation doesn't work for me.
Yes.
I can't do it. I can't shut my brain off. Yeah. Well, that's because you just made your ego an enemy. Yeah. Right? So it's like, but. Right? Whereas someone like Eckhart, he's mastered making the ego his absolute best friend. So his best friend's like, remember, we have to stay present. Everything else is taken care of. We got to stay present, right? And so it's mastering that part. So you guide the ego to help you evolve your spiritual practice, and that's just like a beautiful union.
Wow, that's really well said. Thank you. Yeah. So we actually consciously put the spiritual practice on as a high value, and we ask the ego for help.
Yes, that's actually going to make us safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, is to be more present. Just got to guide it.
Wow. Yeah. I think we could probably Yes.
Finish it there.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're really, really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love spending time with you.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can, join forces in some way.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're on a great path.
Sounds great.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for watching and being part of our morning.
Mm-hmm.
It really was for us, but we let you be part of it. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I was going to say a couple of things. Follow me on YouTube. Oh, you have a website?
I do, yes. Transcendingnutrition.com. I've got a blog on there as well because I've traveled to many parts of the world and interviewed healers, and so I chat about that on my blog, A Healer's Perspective, which you can also find on that website. And I do healing tours, so healing adventure tours, so basically going to destinations, experiencing the wisdom within that culture and what it brings to spirituality and our spiritual health. And going and visiting really cool places, doing some yoga on the beach, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's different than a yoga retreat.
Yes.
It's like a healing adventure, so you actually jump into the culture.
Nice.
Not away from it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you've been to Bali?
Yes, Bali was my start point.
Nice.
That changed everything for me. I learned my values there.
Wow.
Which is incredible.
Wow. Oh, we could have another interview.
We could. But we should probably end it here.
We should end it here.
Yeah.
So James is going to put the links on, for the website, for Kimberly's website and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And thanks you guys for watching and love you, and love it if you share this. If you post pictures, or not pictures, but questions at any time, Kimberly can see them, because she can revisit this. And so, yeah, if you leave us questions at any time, Kimberly will get back to you. Will you answer the questions?
Sure.
Yeah, I just made that up.
All good.
And so we love you, and we're just sending you lots of love and hugs and gratitude, and pop into the store if you like, and lots of cool stuff happening here. Come for meditation on Monday nights. And that's it. Love you lots. Bye. Bye.
Bye.